Galactic Concord had established many training facilities across charted space, but none were spoken of with more dread than the Deathworld Survival Academy, a place so brutal that even veteran soldiers felt their bones vibrate with fear at the thought of entering. The academy had one purpose: preparing elite forces to survive environments classified as planetary hostility Tier 7 or higher, which in simple terms meant worlds where the ecosystem actively tried to erase anything that breathed. Every cycle, recruits from dozens of species arrived trembling at the gates. They came armored, augmented, and mentally conditioned, yet most washed out in less than 2 days. Some fainted during orientation, others quit before stepping off the shuttle. A few simply stared at the razor-edged flora swaying innocently around the compound and refused to leave the landing pad. But this cycle was different. Rumor had spread that a human had enrolled. The whispers traveled from the barracks to the mess halls and finally to the instructors. Humans were classified as Deathworlders, Tier 8. If anyone bothered to label them properly, they had evolved on a nightmare planet with apex predators, crushing gravity, weather that could kill unshielded beings in minutes, and diseases that ate through nervous systems like hungry fire. Even worse, they enjoyed it. So when the shuttle doors hissed open and a single human stepped out, the recruits collectively tensed. He was average height by human standards, but towering by most others, carrying nothing but a backpack and the calm expression of someone who had walked into a grocery store rather than a kill-world training facility. "Hey," the human said casually, "is this the right place for the Deathworld prep course?" The way he said it made recruits from gentle worlds like Civil and Darnak consider evacuation. Instructor Threx, a massive reptilian veteran, stomped forward. "Cadet designation," he demanded. "Corporal Aaron Reyes," the human replied. "UN Marine Corps." Threx narrowed his eyes. "You understand that this facility claims 30% of its trainees within the first 3 days?" "Yeah," Reyes nodded. "Heard you guys run it pretty rough. I'm excited." Excited, excited. The word echoed through the recruits like a nightmare. Orientation began immediately. The holographic briefing displayed images of venomous ground lizards, razorvine forests, and atmospheric anomalies capable of vaporizing a transport. Several recruits whimpered at the footage. Another tried to discreetly vomit into a bag. The human, Reyes, just opened a ration bar and chewed thoughtfully, nodding at the dangers as if watching weather forecasts. By the time orientation concluded, the instructors were already taking bets on how quickly the recruits would fall apart. But about Reyes, they quietly said nothing. Deathworlders were unpredictable, and unpredictable was dangerous. Lights flickered, signaling the start of the first drill. The gates opened, revealing a training zone filled with shifting terrain, unstable footholds, and mildly carnivorous plant life. Recruits hesitated, trembling. Reyes adjusted his pack straps and smiled. "Nice," he said. "Reminds me of home." And with that, the humans strolled into the deadly landscape as if stepping into a park for a lunchtime walk. The first field test was infamous. The gravity crucible, a chamber where the gravitational force slowly increased to simulate high-density planets. Recruits entered wearing reinforced exosuits, each suit calibrated to compensate for at least half the pressure. Even then, trainees from most species usually collapsed within minutes. When the group assembled outside the chamber, trembling and muttering prayers, Aaron Reyes arrived last, carrying a packed lunchbox. The sight of it baffled everyone. "Why are you bringing food into the crucible?" asked a trembling Avrian cadet. Reyes shrugged. "Because I'll get hungry," as though that explained everything. The door sealed shut behind them, and the first gravity increment activated. Several recruits sagged instantly, exosuits groaning under strain. Reyes didn't seem to notice. He unpacked his lunch, a sandwich, fruit, and a drink pouch, and sat calmly on the floor as though at a picnic. The gravity increased again. Bones creaked around the room. One recruit toppled, unable to maintain footing. Instructors outside took notes, impressed the cadet had lasted longer than last cycle's average. Reyes took a bite. "Good stuff," he murmured. The gravity increased once more. The pressure made the air thick. Recruits strained, exosuit servos screeching. Several cried out as legs buckled. Yet the human remained seated, chewing thoughtfully, occasionally offering encouragement. "Breathe slowly," he advised. "Don't lock your knees." A few trainees attempted to follow his instructions, but most were too focused on not dying. When gravity reached level 6, usually reserved for seasoned veterans, nearly everyone was sprawled across the floor. Their suits prevented spinal collapse, but barely. Reyes, meanwhile, shifted positions only to keep crumbs off his pants. He opened his fruit container as if lounging on a sunny afternoon. At gravity level 7, alarms blared. This was beyond the threshold permitted for trainees. Instructors prepared to cut power to prevent fatalities, but just before they did, they paused, because Reyes had stood up, sandwich in hand, balancing effortlessly under crushing force. "You guys okay?" he asked in genuine concern, not realizing half the room was borderline unconscious. The doors finally opened. MedTech crews rushed in, pulling limp bodies out on grav stretchers. Only Reyes walked out unassisted, still chewing. "That was fun," he said to Instructor Threx. "What's next?" Threx stared at him, pupils constricting. Every other species in the academy struggled to survive the crucible, but the human treated it as a mildly inconvenient lunch break. That was the moment the instructors realized something terrifying. Reyes wasn't pushing himself. He wasn't adapting. He wasn't even trying. He was simply existing. The training that broke elite soldiers across the galaxy was to him no more stressful than a slow afternoon gym routine. And the worst part, Threx realized with a chill, was this: they had 4 more days of trials left. The Predator run was designed to simulate pursuit by apex carnivores. The holographic system created physical, semi-solid constructs of deadly creatures from across the galaxy. They hunted, they stalked, they pounced. Recruits typically lasted between 3 and 7 minutes before either quitting or being tagged, consumed. That morning, panic hovered over the trainees like a storm cloud. Some whispered prayers, others wrote farewell notes. One tried to desert outright before being tackled by security drones. Reyes ate yogurt while watching the chaos, concerned but also slightly amused. "Guys," he said, "it's just a training simulation. Predator constructs kill you in extremely realistic ways," cried a trembling Frelkian. "I had a cousin psychologically scarred for life." "Sounds rough," Reyes replied sympathetically, "but still, it's just a run." The gates opened, the jungle simulation flickered to life. Thick with snarling sounds and rustling shadows, the first holographic predator appeared, a 6-limbed flesh raptor with serrated mandibles. It screeched, and half the recruits screamed louder. They fled in 9 directions at once, tripping over each other. Reyes watched the creature thoughtfully. Looks like a Florida gator but with extra steps," he said, then casually jogged into the forest. Not sprinting, not panicking, jogging, as though on a morning trail. The monitoring instructors stared in disbelief as the predators ignored most of the panicked recruits and gravitated toward him, attracted by movement patterns signifying confidence rather than fear. Reyes responded like someone dealing with misbehaving dogs. "Nope," he said, stepping aside as one lunged. Down, as he ducked beneath another, more predators spawned, the system escalating difficulty because it believed a veteran operator was present. Reyes had no weapons, no armor except standard issue, but his reflexes were almost insultingly calm. He sidestepped, ducked, vaulted over roots, occasionally scolding a raptor with casual annoyance. The predators tracked him relentlessly. They were designed to terrify prey, but Reyes wasn't prey. At one point, he grabbed a branch, swung upward, and the pursuing beasts slammed into each other beneath him. "That's why you don't crowd people," he muttered, munching on the granola bar he had tucked in his uniform sleeve. Browsing the canopy, he spotted the end beacon. "Oh, cool, almost done." Meanwhile, trainees screamed as predators popped up behind them. The instructors debated shutting the simulation down before morale shattered completely. "Look at them," one whispered. "This training is supposed to shape elite soldiers, not traumatize civilians." "It's not the simulation scaring them," Threx said hollowly. "It's him." Because every recruit saw something far worse than predators. They saw a human treating lethal creatures like mildly annoying pigeons. Reyes reached the finish zone with relaxed posture, scanning for a place to sit. His biggest concern was whether his granola bar wrapper was recyclable. When the system announced his completion time, silence fell across the facility. He had broken the all-time record by accident while snacking. And the recruits, many began questioning their career choices entirely. Nightfall in the Deathworld training zone was designed to simulate hyper-hostile nocturnal environments. In simple terms, Everything became more dangerous. The foliage emitted toxic spores, burrowing creatures emerged from the ground, and the temperature dropped to levels that caused most species to enter hypothermic shock without specialized suits. Trainees were instructed to stay awake in rotating shifts. The most common cause of failure wasn't creature attacks, but mental collapse from sleep deprivation mixed with fear. The instructors monitored closely, alert for psychological breaking points. That night, recruits huddled in terrified clusters. Every rustle caused panic. Every distant screech made someone choke back a sob. They clung to their gear, eyes wild, muscles trembling. Meanwhile, Reyes unrolled a blanket, placed a small pillow beneath his head, and lay down by a tree, was supposed to maintain alertness, stammered a horrified Verixian cadet. "Yeah, you should," Reyes said, already half asleep. "I'm good though, but the creatures... If something comes near me, I'll wake up," Reyes mumbled, "or it'll be more afraid of me than I am of it." The recruits stared in disbelief. Nobody had ever slept during the night hazards, nobody. The very idea felt like sacrilege, like tempting fate, like volunteering for death. But Reyes slept, deeply, peacefully, even snoring softly. Around midnight, a burrowing fangmore emerged beside him. A creature with retractable bone spikes and a jaw capable of chewing metal. Recruits screamed helplessly, but the noise startled the beast, making it freeze. Reyes, still asleep, rolled over and absently patted its head as if it were a house pet. The creature emitted a confused chirp and retreated underground, existentially shaken. At 3 in the morning, toxic spores drifted through the air. The recruits activated filters and huddled together. Reyes, still asleep, unconsciously pulled his blanket over his nose, protected by pure instinct born from surviving human pollen seasons. When dawn finally arrived, the instructors expected mass casualties or at least several breakdowns. Instead, they found most recruits exhausted but alive, and Reyes, waking up with a stretch, "Slept great," he said. "What's for breakfast?" Many recruits stared at him with religious awe, others with horror. Some whispered theories that humans lacked fear, that humans were immune to death, that humans were secretly predators more dangerous than the creatures lurking in the dark. Instructor Threx simply updated Reyes' psychological profile with 2 words: terrifyingly normal. The Academy had one final test left, and every species present feared it wouldn't be the simulation that destroyed them, but the comparison to him. The final exam was the Gauntlet, a brutal course combining environmental hazards, predator assaults, gravity shifts, and psychological stresses. Most trainees didn't finish. The ones who did often required extensive rehabilitation afterward. Reyes approached the starting line with a sandwich. The instructors didn't even ask anymore. The horn blared, the recruits charged forward, some screaming, some praying, some already regretting their choices. Reyes walked briskly like someone trying not to be late for a bus. He navigated collapsing bridges with casual hops, dodged razor vines with annoyed sighs, and when a giant territorial apex hologram roared in his face, he simply said no and walked around it. The simulation AI hesitated, then angrily spawned 3 more, which he ignored too. Halfway through, he paused to eat lunch, sitting on a rock as the world around him erupted in chaos. Recruits fled from hazards. Instructors shouted into comms. Alarms blared. Meanwhile, he chewed calmly, occasionally offering encouragement to passing trainees. "You're doing great. Careful, vine on your left. Drink water." When he finished his sandwich, he dusted off his hands and resumed the course, finishing in a relaxed stroll. He broke 3 more Academy records without realizing it. When the completion horn sounded, the recruits who survived were trembling, staring at him like a force of nature. Graduation ceremony was tense. Some trainees whispered that the Academy should ban humans from joining, not because they were dangerous to others, but because they made the entire process meaningless. If one being could breeze through the galaxy's hardest training while having a picnic, what did that say about everyone else? Instructor Threx approached Reyes with the final badge. "Human Reyes," he said slowly, "you have completed Deathworld survival training." "Cool," Reyes replied brightly. "That was fun, thanks for the challenge." The word fun hit the crowd like an explosion. The recruits realized they had survived something worse than monsters, worse than gravity, worse than oxygen-eating fungi. They had trained beside a human. Reyes turned to the group with a smile, "Lunch anyone." Several fainted on the spot. And from that day forward, galactic military academies quietly added a standing rule: if a human applies, recalibrate everything. Because Deathworld training broke everyone except the one species that called such training Tuesday afternoon with snacks.